Hi, my name is Chandani Chavda and welcome to the Fearless Females podcast. I've recently created a Facebook group called Fearless Females, which has a purpose to connect women from all over the world to support each other and share their thoughts and experiences. It's crazy what we can all learn from each other. This podcast is created as an extension of the group where I will have some inspiring females talking to us about their stories. This is my first ever podcast episode and I'm excited to have the amazing Fiona Okonkwo as my first guest. Fiona and I studied our Masters in Chemical Engineering together and ended up being lab partners for our dissertation. After graduating, Fiona went on to exploring different roles and has a successful career in engineering. She became chartered, which is an incredible achievement, and is passionate about women empowerment and mentorship. On this podcast, we explore topics such as working in a male-dominated environment, building confidence, female leadership, and creating allies in the workplace. Without further ado, let's get stuck in. Feedback that I've got back from that as well. And I posted something, I think it was on Sunday, around, I spoke to one of my close relations last week and she was all like, oh, I love this, it's such a good idea. But she just felt she couldn't articulate herself and actually post on this group. So I put a caption to say, well, what makes you fearless and what does it mean to you? So do you want to tell the listeners, so what does being a fearless female mean to you?
Okay, so being a fearless female to me means like you still feel fear of doing things, but you do them anyway. I think it's just human nature to feel fear. And I think as a female, especially if you're working in what essentially is a male world, there's always a little bit of added extra anxiety, I find anyway. And I think being fearless is just not letting that anxiety hold you back and trying to step out in spite of that. And so, for example, I'm quite an introvert, and so I don't like crowds of people, things to do with groups. It's not that I don't like people, like I like people once I know you, like that's fine. But if it's a fairly new group, if I've not worked with you before or in close proximity, and then suddenly I'm now in charge of 8 people and I have to run a workshop or something, I'll just be like really outside of my comfort zone. But then I'll do it anyway. I might stumble a bit along the way. But yeah, just keep going. Yeah, definitely.
That's good. So why don't you tell us then a bit about yourself? So how did you get to where you are now?
Okay, so I'm a chartered chemical engineer.
Chartered, can I just say? Oh, very nice. I've been working towards my chartership. That's really nice to hear. Well done. Congratulations.
Thank you. If you need any tips.
Oh, I will. I'll come back to you on that.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got chartered a year ago. It wasn't a prerequisite for my career, but I made it like a personal goal of mine. And I found that works best really when you make your own personal goals. I find, because I'm quite self-motivated, then I'll get there. So yeah. I became a chemical engineer after studying together with Chandani at the University of Birmingham.
But so a bit of background, we were actually lab partners. So we did our masters together and we were lab partners. And can I just say we hit it first in our dissertation. So yeah. That was a good year. We did really well. It was a fun year being in Chem Eng. We had a good group going on. Good group of girls as well, which was nice to see.
Yeah, I love that. And I think the chemical engineering degree itself, it was very challenging. And I think being amongst the females, I think there was about maybe 25% of our class was female. I think that was a challenge, but at the same time, it felt like a privilege. It was like, we're here occupying this space on an engineering degree, and we've earned our place to be here just as much as the boys have. So so I studied at University of Birmingham. I graduated, and even during university I wasn't sure about Chem Eng. I didn't really know what a chemical engineer was. So
I don't think anyone did. Everyone's like, this degree sounds great, it's really difficult, it's maybe it looks smart, but
yeah. So I did a couple of internships whilst I was studying. I did a year out working for Pfizer pharmaceutical company, and I learnt loads about Chem-Eng, and I had a female boss as well, which was so inspiring. So she gave me lots of inspiration to keep going, so I kept going. Also, Chem-Eng I thought so great because you get opportunities to work abroad, so I actually did a 3-month summer internship abroad in Germany as well, and that was an amazing experience. I just felt so independent. I was like, I'm here, like, by myself for 3 months, okay, doing a job, earning my money, paying my way, like, yeah, it was great. And I think experiences like that really helped motivate me to get through my degree, and it gave me confidence, and it gave me a feeling of possibility. Like, there's so much possibilities that you can do and you can become from having our career path. So after that, I joined a graduate scheme in the food industry as well. Nice. And I actually found it really hard. So that was a very challenging time for me. I think at one point me and Shadney did meet up for dinner, and I just like moaned to her.
What was the role that you had there? Is it just an engineering graduate, right?
Yeah, engineering graduate. Yeah. And I just felt like a fish out of water. And yeah, I think that's the only way I could describe it. The environment to me was just completely different to anything I'd experienced, and I really struggled, and I couldn't seem to find my feet or find someone there who could understand what I was going through. And I think that ultimately meant that I had to reassess, and I thought, I still want to do Chem-Eng. This is what I want to be, but I just had to take a step back and reassess. So I was with the company for 1 year, and then I actually moved back home after a year, and I wasn't sure what to do next, and I searched and searched for a job. It took me 6 months before I found a new job. So I moved from food to automotive, and that was completely different. And also it was a different experience living at home as well. I feel like living at home gave me a bit more support to venture out again as an engineer, a graduate engineer. And I worked in this automotive company. It was quite a small company, but we supplied big customers like Jaguar Land Rover, Toyota, and my boss there just gave me so much responsibility from day one. I really was able to have so much freedom. I was doing meetings in front of customers. I formed really good relationships with the shop floor. I did have arguments with people as well. Like, I did get challenged that I was a female and what was I doing here?
Yeah, I've had that. I was just going to ask, what were the diversity dynamics like in terms of gender, let's say?
Okay, yeah. So gender, I would say 3% female.
Wow, is that of the whole factory or the office, or how was the
that was the whole
there?
factory? The whole factory was, yeah, there was hardly any women. You could like count them on your 2 hands, essentially.
Yeah, this is quite the norm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there was definitely less than 10 women, and in the office it was slightly higher. In the office, I think the accountants were women and HR was women.
Okay.
Yeah. So there was no. Actually, the quality manager, she was a female as well. So we did have some females in leadership position. We had a female in a leadership role as well. So that was good to speak to her as well about sort of her experience working there. But I never actually felt like, or I rarely felt like that was an issue.
Good. Okay.
And my boss, who was male, was really supportive, and he hadn't gone to university or anything, and I felt like we had mutual respect. And I think that's so important in working relationships, to have that mutual respect for each other. I think it just helps with productivity, and it helps to have open communication channels as well. So yeah, he was really open with me. I was really open with him. I said, you know, I've struggled with working before, and you know, just let me know if I'm doing anything wrong, or if there's anything you want me to change. And he said exactly the same thing to me. He said, well, you know, I've been here for like 20 odd years, but that doesn't mean I know everything. And you know, if you think there's a better way we could do things, then yeah, let's give it a go, and we can like learn together. So I responded really well to that environment. And you know, it's strange looking back now, because I feel like he was a mentor and I didn't even know it at the time. I didn't know what a mentor was.
And you still keep in touch with him now?
Yeah, I do.
Good.
I do message him sometimes. Yeah, like it's, yeah, I think experiences like that, they really last with you. So I was hired as a process engineer, but as for the paint line, but they didn't have a quality engineer, so I ended up doing both roles. So I did that, and you know, I worked really hard, and yeah, I just got really great feedback. And with that, it gave me the confidence to step into another role in another automotive company as a process engineer of like a whole department as well. So I moved from automotive paints to automotive coatings for seating. And yeah, there I did some design work. I designed extraction systems for a new lab we had. I wrote standard operating procedures. I used sort of my quality experience as well to improve existing documentation. I wrote like maintenance schedules for machinery. Yeah, like
sounds like
I had another inspiring boss there as well. So I just really, I think I found my footing as an engineer. And after that, I had my last job as a manufacturing engineer for G's Fresh in beetroot. So I moved into food
again.
And during that time, I worked a lot with machinery manufacturers, and I set standard ways of working and operating the machines. Yeah, I just got stuck into the machine side, and I learned also a bit more about supermarkets because we were supplying supermarkets. So I learned a bit more about the customer dynamic. And I got so into the role that I even went to a couple of conferences, one for a packaging supplier conference, and one for a food technology conference as well. And I made some links there, and with the links that I made, I was able to bring a new product to the business as well. So yeah, I just got loads of experience, and I think my path hasn't been straightforward, but when I look back on it, I really can take a lot from it, and all those experiences enabled me to apply to become a chartered chemical engineer with the Institute of Chemical Engineers. And now today I work for Pladis under the brand McVitie's, making biscuits in the continuous improvement department, or excellence department. Yeah, and I love the role, and I think the journey that I've taken hasn't been a straightforward one, but it's been one that's really enabled me to feel confident being the only woman in the room, or being the only engineer in the room, and being people looking to me for expertise and support.
Nice. So what's been one of your biggest challenges then throughout your career, let's say, because you've worked at many different places, so you've been exposed to many different things and different types of people as well?
Yeah, okay. I think my biggest challenge has been reading people's emotions, and understanding that what someone says isn't necessarily what they mean, or that there might be a deeper reason behind what they've said. So whilst I was working in automotive, we had a lot of contractors who were quality engineers, and that function seemed to be a bit A bit dysfunctional, really. Yeah, so it was a dysfunctional function, and with contractors going in and out of quality engineering roles. And I found that my interactions with them were often fractious. Like one time someone like shouted at me and I was so taken aback because we were literally less than a meter away from each other, and he was just yelling at me saying that, oh, sort this out, it's not my problem, blah blah blah. And I was like, wow, where did that come from?
Wow.
So I had to think, I was upset, and then I had to think, well, if I just shout back, we're not going to get anywhere. So I'd had to just take a step back and think, actually, why is this guy so stressed? Why is he yelling? Did I actually do anything wrong? Or is it him? It's not me. So I realized it was him, it wasn't me. He was stressed because he needed support in his role, and he was yelling at me for support in a weird way. So the next day I came back into the office and I took him to one side and I said, let's just go through the issue with the customer. I know you're under a lot of pressure to resolve this issue, so let's work on it together and get it done. And I think he was really surprised that I came to speak to him again. So he was really shocked, and then he was like, okay, and then we didn't have any problems ever.
All it takes is one conversation, right? You just have a little chit chat with someone and just find out what the issue is, and always gets resolved. Always good. Sure. And then in your career as well, then you said there was one female that you came across who was in a leadership position, but what are your thoughts around women in leadership positions, and is that seen enough in any industry? So not just even engineering, but just any industry in general. What are your thoughts?
So I think that women in leadership positions is a good thing. I think we're now in a time where everybody almost has to work. That's just the way our society functions. And I think when you do get a job and are in the workplace, you want to be able to get as high as you want, as you desire. You don't want to be limited. So if you want to be a leader, it shouldn't matter whether you're a male or a female. I think that we need more females in leadership roles in general, because there's a large disparity between men and women in leadership roles. But then I also think that the women in leadership roles need to be more vocal than what they are at present. I know it's hard getting to be in a leadership role, especially if in your industry there aren't that many women. But I think once you get there, you need to showcase and highlight that you're there, and shout about it, whether that's on your social media platform, whether that's by mentoring people. I really think that, for me especially, something I've struggled with is not seeing an example of someone like me in a position where I want to get to. And I think if women in leadership roles are more visible, then it will encourage more women and girls to aspire to be in leadership roles, because they know it's a possibility.
That's interesting. So you said you haven't, or you can't see that someone more senior or someone in a leadership position, you don't have that visibility of someone, but then you've got the younger generation coming through. So I mentioned STEM subjects on the group, on the Fearless Females Facebook group, which is science, technology, engineering, and maths subjects pretty much. And I've done a lot of talks to schools where there's young children, young girls especially, more so, and I discuss what it means to do these roles. And it's almost an eye-opener when I speak to some of the girls and also the parents about engineering in particular, because that's my field. And I'm talking to them around, oh, well, this is what engineering is. And a lot of the parents are like, oh, we don't want my girls' hair to get oily, and we don't want their overalls to get dirty, and we don't want their nails to do this. And I'm just there like, what do you think engineering is? Like, what have you guys been told? Like, this is crazy. So it's almost like we will have that mentorship or that level above us, but then we also need to start educating the girls as well and the people coming through, right?
Yeah.
So is there anything or any links that you have to the younger generation? Is there anything that you do to be a mentor to them?
So for sure. So I've also done outreach work as part of STEM as well. So I did go a few years ago. I did go to a school for like a careers open day, and I was on the Women in STEM stall essentially. And these were these were GCSE age students, so like 15, 16-year-olds coming round. They were getting to the time of year where they're selecting their A-level options. And I did have a lot of females come and speak to me, and they were really encouraged by being able to see a female engineer, and they're really interested in my career and my career journey. So that's something that I have participated in. I also was a council member for the Women Engineering Society for 3 years, and as part of that I did run stalls at certain events. For example, there was a recruitment event that they do every year at the Birmingham NEC, where I actually gave a presentation on what like a day in the life of my role is as an engineer. And this was targeted at university students, but also at women who had taken a career break for whatever reason, whether that was to raise children, to care for a relative, or whatever reason. And I had a lot of people from a broad age range asking me questions as well. So I think there's definitely a thirst and a hunger for people who are younger and older than us to see more people like us. I also mentor people. So I meet people either through networking events. Like I recently did a networking event online, because we're now virtual.
Yes.
For the Black Women Engineers Society, which is an exciting new network that started by one of my friends, Abby, and she did a cross-panel event on Allyship, and I was a panel member, and it was free to attend, and everyone just did it online. And through that, where I was telling people about what I think an ally is and my experience of allyship in the workplace, quite a few people have messaged me, and I've got 2 more mentees via that, and these are university students. So
amazing. Yeah, I didn't even know that group existed.
It's
so maybe you can.
It literally started less than 6 months ago. So I'll be sure to like post it on the Fearless Women Facebook group so everybody can know all about it. Yeah,
please do. I'd love to see stuff like that. So what was your answers to those questions about allyship, and what were your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so on allyship, I said what I thought an ally is. So allyship to me is someone who has that mutual respect for you, and also who can see when your voice isn't being heard. So oftentimes we can have this sort of mansplaining go on if we're in a meeting, where like maybe 1 of 2 women in the room and the rest of the people are men, and sometimes our voices aren't heard, or the men in the room aren't as receptive to our voices for whatever reason, and your contribution might be neglected or overlooked, and then somebody else might say something that is exactly what you said 5 minutes earlier, but because it's come from a different voice, it's listened to more.
Yeah.
And I think this is sort of like a behaviour that we need to change. And one of the ways we can change this behaviour is by having allies in the room who, when they see that this has gone on, acknowledge it by saying, actually, James, Fiona just said exactly the same thing 5 minutes earlier. So I think we should ask her to expand on that point. For example, And I also came across this new phrase called majority ally, and it made me look on allyship in a different way. So it was basically like, if you share traits with whoever's the majority in the workplace, then you could be a majority ally. So for example, if your workplace was mostly middle-aged men and you were middle-aged or a man, then you could be an ally in that situation, because for whatever reason that's just the landscape of your workplace, and people will be used to hearing voices and viewpoints from that certain demographic. And I think it's really important for people to acknowledge their position demographic wise as well in the workplace, and see if that affects people's interactions with them and with others.
Interesting. So is that something that you've done in the workplace?
So yeah, so because I run workshops, where I'll be running workshops with operators in the factory, then we could have a group of operators, like maybe 8 operators, and then I would invite like a technical expert to the conversation or for a meeting and say, okay, now we're going to listen to what the technical expert has to say about this. And even in some cases, an operator might have said the same thing as what the technical expert has said. And yeah. I'll just be like, oh, well, thank you so much for bringing up this point again, technical expert, because operator number 2 raised that point earlier. And you can see the relief on somebody's face when you do that, because they're like, I've been listened to, my contribution is valuable. And I think we sort of miss that point, you know, like as human beings, we want to be heard, we want to be seen. And I think that's just like a really large part of our identity. And I think if we're not heard and seen, then I think that knocks our confidence. And actually in a workplace, we want to build people's confidence.
I completely agree. Like I've been in situations like that in the past as well. And it just makes me feel really reluctant to actually speak up or say my point or say another point even. I'm almost just like, oh, well, I'm just going to kind of hide away. But actually, I've had to adapt and learn to do exactly that. So speak up, but make sure my point is being heard, and do the whole allyship. But I just do it for myself sometimes to be like, oh, wait, I just said that.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I just said that. It's taken some time, but I've got there in the workplace. So yeah, I agree on that. And it really has helped with my confidence as well. Because there's so many times where, you know, they say like, if you want to even ask a question about, no question is a silly question or something. Yeah. So, but people still feel scared to ask a question. So I'm just like, oh, do I want to say my question? But I'll make my point. Like it's taken time, but I get there. So do you feel that, whether that's in the workplace or not, but that women support women enough? This could be in or out of the workplace.
That is a tough one. Because I don't think I can generalize for all women.
Just through your experiences then, let's
from
say.
From my personal experience, I think I've had some really good experiences recently of women supporting women, where my female colleagues in my team, because my team, there's like one or two of me in every site, and so we were used to talking virtually anyway, like via Skype or Microsoft Teams or whatever. But I found that my female teammates are really good at supporting me, and we're really good at supporting each other. I feel like we've got that much common ground that it helps to unite us, and we're able to support each other. I think the difficulty comes in women supporting other women when there's no common ground. Because I even say this with people searching for mentors, like you might want Bill Gates to be your mentor because, you know, he's like the most famous entrepreneur ever. But if you don't have anything in common with Bill Gates, you wouldn't be able to have conversations that would bring about a fruitful mentor-mentee relationship. So I think women need to work harder to find that common ground with each other and support each other. I think sometimes we're so busy focusing on the fact that we're a minority in that space that we try and diminish those aspects of being a woman in favor of trying to blend in or whatever it is that people are trying to do. And that can prevent us from forming good and supportive relationships with the other women in the space. I think that's something that I probably have done in the past as well. But just through experience, and I think just through developing and being more mature, I realized that actually, like, no, like, women are allies. We need to be allies for one another. And I don't see how we could progress in the workplace if we weren't.
It's interesting. So you base it on the workplace. So let's say then you, in the future, take a step into, let's say, motherhood. Then you're coming away from your career, let's say, for a short break, let's say, and you then potentially look for different sources of support, right? Women who have then gone through that kind of thing, through motherhood, through being a mom and raising children and whatnot.
Yeah.
So there's like different times. So, as a woman, we go through so many different stages. So it's almost like, okay, well then when that comes, you can then look for a different kind of support network or speak to others, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And what do you think about women? So women's careers, people say that they can be limited due to the factor of having children. I've heard that enough. And yeah, I just wanted to know, what do you think about that?
I think that is a tough one because I think women should have the choice to do what they want to do with their lives. I feel like there's this conversation that always goes on in the background where the conversation's almost depersonalized, and it's just like, oh well, women have babies and become mothers, and then that's the most important role in their lives, and that's what they should focus on, and you know, they can't have it all. And I think that decision needs to be up to the individual woman and her support network. It shouldn't be one that like we or other people comment on. I think that what makes women feel a lot of pressure regarding that decision is that it is often depersonalized. But I think nobody knows anyone's situation. I feel like we're in this era where everybody paints a perfect picture online that, oh yeah, the family life's amazing, or my career's like skyrocketing, and no one actually knows what's behind that smile that you're presenting. So, you know, there might be a reason why she really wants to return to the workplace. Maybe she feels like she's lost a bit of her identity through becoming a mother, or there might be a reason why she doesn't want to return to the workplace. Maybe she's just got that many responsibilities at home that now's not the right time for her to do so. So I really think that it should be completely individual. And I think, to be honest, I probably have fallen foul of this, of thinking that, so, you know, for example, people can return part-time. And I think I fell foul of thinking that, oh, if somebody's part-time or if they're working from home, then are they still contributing to the team in the same way? Has their value changed suddenly because they're part-time or working from home? But now we're in coronavirus times, and I think hopefully everybody's mindset will be changing, that somebody doing a role remotely or part-time doesn't devalue their contribution.
Yeah, I completely agree. So even in one of the previous project teams that I was on, we had a woman who was working part-time because she chose to work part-time to fit her lifestyle and her work. So she wanted to be there for her kids and take them to school and whatnot, but also still have her foot through the door with work. And a lot of comments that were made within the team are, oh, well, she's hardly here. You have to be full-time to make it work. And it's almost the negativity around her working part-time. But actually, if you look at what she was delivering, she delivered everything on time to a great quality. She was great. So it just made me think, well, are you guys, and it was mainly coming from all the guys. They're like, oh, she's part-time anyway. And, not taken seriously almost. So it made me step up and say something as well, because I just felt it was a bit unfair for that judgment to be made when actually everything was being delivered. So it's like, well, why is that even being said? Just because somebody is working remotely or part-time or whatever the case is, it does not mean that the job is not going to get done. It's just dependent on that individual to get it done. And if that person, male or female, is good, then it will get done.
100%. And I really think we need to move towards a more of a meritocracy where people are judged on the quality of their work. And I know, like, we don't live in this ideal utopia where other things aren't going to be taken into account, but I really hope that over time things improve so that when we are talking about women or women's achievements, we actually just talk about their achievements. And the fact that they're a mother or a wife or whatever it is that they are in addition doesn't detract from what they've achieved and is more a just a compliment, because I think that men seem to have this freedom of defining themselves, whereas we seem to lack that freedom, where we seem to be defined by others, like whether it's our children, our partners, or whatever else it is, like if we're a miss or a missus or whatever,
Yeah.
I think we need to take back some of that and take ownership of defining who we are, just the same way that men do.
Interesting. Okay. And if we go back to your career as an engineer, so it's something that I get told to do at work, and I think we all get told to do this at work, is what's your 5 to 10 year plan? So I guess I was going to ask, do you see yourself continuing in an engineering style function?
That is a good question, and I actually had an interesting conversation about this not too long ago, literally last week. So I, similar to yourself, I do want to learn more about the commercial aspect. So if my 5-year plan, it would be to be more commercial, and I would definitely stay engineering adjacent. I definitely want to do a role where my engineering skills complement, but whether I'll be doing a role where engineering is the main primary function in 5 years' time, I think that's up for debate. And I think that's the beauty of being an engineer in the first place and studying engineering, is that you've just got so many transferable skills that you're not pinned down to any one career. So if you want to go and be a commercialized person, or whether it's project management, anything like that, anything involving numbers, logic, and even just relationships with people, because we have to talk to so many different functions, engineering does put you in good stead to really forge your own path.
You really are selling it there, you are. to all the mums who have girls, we need engineers, guys.
Yeah.
No, it's good. And I agree with it also, yeah. I do think that what you'll see in some companies, some of the larger companies, is in order to be a senior leader, it's not just a technical experience that you need. It is the whole the whole kind of full rounded picture. So you need a bit of business acumen, you need your technical skills, you need your people skills. So to be all rounded, you need to dip your foot into each kind of role, I guess. So that's something that I'm trying to work on myself to get to where I would like to be. So yeah, it's always great having a foundation as an engineer, because as you know, engineering roles, you can only have an engineering degree to do them, whereas other roles in the factory or in the workplace, commercial roles, for example, you don't necessarily need that specific degree to go into that role. So it's always a good place to start, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. Well, thank you so much for joining me, Fiona.
Thank you for having me as your first guest, Janine.
I know, my first
guest. I feel honoured.
Of course, it's good. I feel honoured to have you as my first guest. So thank you. It's a really good chat. And yeah. Thank you so much for listening to the Fearless Females podcast. Be sure to join our Facebook group called Fearless Females and stay tuned for the next episode. Bye for now.